up, the phone rings, and you've got 90 days to decide whether you are the buyer or you are going to be the one who watched it close to somebody else. This is Driving the Transition Train, part two. And this morning, we are in the buyer's seat. Good morning. You know why you're here. Let's not waste our time together. I respect your time. We're live on YouTube right now. Please like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. It really helps this channel grow. And if you know an operator that wants to hear this or should hear this, please share it with them. My name is Dan Aberhart. I run Growing the Future Productions, Western Canadian Agriculture's foremost live briefing platform, and I'm the non-farming sibling from a family operation that runs over 20,000 acres today on the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. They still have a few acres to get in the ground. That's one for the record books, folks, for sure, but they're getting there. Wade Berlinic said something to a father and son across a table not long ago. He asked them, "You got a neighbor who's only farming another 5 years?" They said, "Yes." He said, "Have you talked to them?" They said, "No." He said, "Why not?" He said, "We don't know how." He said, "That's where I come in." Tim Hammond says most buyers in this province are reactive. Phone rings, 22 quarters is on the table. They wonder if they can buy them. Tim says that question should have been settled 2 years ago. You should already know the answer before anyone calls. He put it plainly, the prepared buyer acts decisively. The unprepared buyer watches somebody else close it. That's legendary FOMO. We don't want that for any of one of you. That's the gap between most operators where they're at and where they need to be. This morning, Tim and Wade and all of us together on the call are going to fix the world's problems in 1 hour. You should have heard us in the green room. We were really killing it with all kinds of interesting conjecture. So, my friends, thank you so much for attending live. Here's what you're going to be walking out of this hour with. Number one, you will know what it actually takes to be ready to buy before the opportunity shows up, not after. Number two, you will know the difference between what a quarter costs and what's actually worth to your operation from a strategic point of view. And number three, you're going to hear the question that every ambitious buyer in Western Canada is going to hit inside the next 3 years from two people who have already answered it for real. Let's get into it, folks. Wade Berlinic has spent his career building this system that makes deals like that one possible. He walks you through how it actually happens. Good morning, Wade.
Good morning, Dan. Glad to be here. Hope the ones that are still seeding are getting close to done. It's quite a change. Last year, we never had a lot of rain, and this year it doesn't want to quit.
It's crazy, yeah. Send some good vibes my brother's way. They're still hammering on it. And I talked to a young lady from Swan River this morning. And when I said, "Are you half done?" She's like, And you know how it just cascades, right? Then it's in crop, then it's just a host of things. So we are hoping and praying our farmers out there get finished their noble work. And for the ones that got it finished, we hope it's coming up strong. Sounds pretty good from most of the folks I talked to. Tim Hammond founded Hammond Realty. 30 years in this, one of the only realtors in this province who holds a professional agrologist designation, so he can officially, when asked highly technical questions about agronomy, like every other agronomist on planet Earth, give you the very scientific answer of, well, it depends. That's my dad joke about agronomists. If you're an agronomist, the first thing you're going to say is, it depends. And it does. I give him that. But he closes the loop on what it all means for where the province is headed with farmland. Tim, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, I see a lot of really interesting and intellectual, handsome people in the chat here today. Give me a thumbs up. Give me something to show me you're alive and you're paying attention. This is what these live briefings are all about. You can put questions into the Q&A or the chat. You can access experts for free. It's really what makes this platform hum. And I really appreciate Hammond Realty supporting it. So I'm going to launch a poll here very shortly. These questions help raise awareness for all of us in the room. Right now, what would you say is the single biggest barrier keeping you from your next acquisition? I know some of you are also on the advisory side. And when we started this series, we wanted to be educational, not only for buyers, but the people that work with them, obviously, or coordinate, quarterback, be the conductor, if you want to take the train analogy a little further down the track. But let me know what you're thinking in this poll here. What is your biggest barrier to entry to acquiring farmland? Because that's a big conversation right now, isn't it? In the agriculture community, how to acquire farmland. So Wade, let's start rolling with you, Wade. You said buyers are reactive the same way sellers are. Phone rings, however many X amount of quarters come on the table, they wonder if they can buy it. You said that question should have been answered years ago. What does it take to be the buyer who already has the answer in hand?
I think to recognize that you need to sit down with your advisors early and say, you know what, here's an idea we have. We want to grow our farm. We're not sure how much we want to grow it, but we know we want to grow it. And start that discussion and start answering those questions one at a time and get your plan in place. And I don't know what the answers to your first poll are going to be, but certainly structure kind of encompasses everything. I think structure encompasses the financing, it encompasses the timing, it encompasses finding it. So I don't know what they're going to pick, but
Tim, do you want to guess? Tim's always a guesser.
My guessing is finding it. That's been the challenge for the last 5 to 10 years, just availability.
Well, let me ask you guys, what comes first here? Maybe this is a stupid fifth grader question, but please forgive me and permit me. But what comes first, preparation or structure? Preparation or structure? Structure or preparation?
I think they're hand in hand, really. Like while you're preparing, right?
Preparation is part of the structure.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, guess what? Structure was over half of what's holding people back. 55% said, I don't have the entity or the plan in place. 9% said financing. 0% said timing. 1/3 said finding it. And 9% said, I advise buyers, I see this barrier in my clients. So what is that? What is that telling us? Is the structure a hard thing to get? Or you don't know where to start? Or if you just prepared, it wouldn't matter because you'd already be there and you'd already have it. If you talk to the right people, you're going to have the structure that you need to acquire these opportunities. A lot of deep questions very early in this. I know. Wade, how are you?
I'm not sure that, Dan, that
you have a structure. You have your 4D structure, but I think we're talking about the legal and financial.
I'm not sure that prior.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure that prior to the development of our program, they knew where to turn, because who was going to coordinate all those advisors and who was going to bring the real estate and transition expertise at the same time? I don't know where that would have existed prior to our program. So when they say they don't have it in place, even if they're trying to put it in place, they probably don't know who to call.
Mm. When we're talking about structure, what are we talking about here? What does the structure look like to be in a position for acquisition? What are these people referring to?
I think it has to do with kind of the entire team, like the accountant, the lender, and the producer, just kind of coordinating on all of this and brainstorming, I guess, that, okay, what do we have the capacity to purchase, to grow, like lending wise, and what are our risk tolerances with that, and how do we structure it too? I mean, structure can be, it's not all debt. I mean, sometimes equity partners, or you get an investor to buy some land when you're buying land at the same time, right? So I think there's a lot of different things that can kind of come into this structured part, Dan.
Well, I'm very curious. I see, Dean, you're on the call. We were talking yesterday. I'm not going to totally put you on the spot and bring it on, but say if you're looking at acquiring land, which I don't know if you are or not, or you're happy with the lifestyle you have. I know you have a lot on the go, but for you, what does that structure mean, Dean? Do you have a structure in place, and what does it look like? Dallas Spike, you're on the call. What does the structure look like for you? Put it in the chat. Norm, what does the structure look like for you? Are we talking about legal entities or advisory boards, or what are the pieces that you have to have in place? And I guess this is a great opportunity for you guys to describe what the train looks like on the tracks as the infrastructure to be positioned, because I imagine like one of the things you're probably helping folks manage here, if we get to really the root of the issue, is like most of these land decisions, when they come up, they're extremely emotional. So if you haven't set your boundaries and decided what you're going to pay and not pay strategically, and if you haven't looked at it from a strategic overall eye, is this good for my business or not? You're going to be, you know, go home, you're drunk kind of land buyer, right? Because you want it so bad, it's emotional.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and that just kind of speaks to the shortage of land that we've had for the last 10 years, right? And so it's what I call buyer fatigue, right? There's just nothing out there. You want to buy something, right? And so when something comes up, it's not perfect, it's farther away, it really doesn't work in, but man, I'm just so afraid that I'm never going to get another opportunity again. So reactively, they buy it, right? And it's not a wrong decision because farmland has kept going up, right? But it's not the, potentially the optimal decision. But there's part of the strategy is, okay, you've anchored that, right? Maybe we do approach, people close to you and secure a purchase there, and then you can resell that to somebody else where it does work better for their farm.
Yeah. Wade, you have a structure. You have the little like pieces of the train following your engine there. You're the conductor. What are those pieces that you put together? Is there an order? Is there a strategy? Is it all depends, like we agronomists say? It depends.
Yeah. Like everything, it starts with a conversation, Dan,
Yeah.
and that's where our 4Ds comes into play. Our define, our discover, our design, and our deliver program. And really the define part of that is just sitting down at the kitchen table, on the phone, whatever the case may be, and saying, what are your thoughts? What are your ambitions? What do you want to do? Do you want 5 more quarters? Do you want 50 more quarters? Do you want them locally? Do you want them at a distance? Do you want a satellite farm? Uh, have you thought of how the financing part of that's going to work, and how the equipment part of that's going to work, and how the labor part of that's going to work, and how the management part of that's going to work? So the logistics of all that stuff, to sit down and have that discussion, and then move on to the full discovery part of putting all those pieces together, getting all that information compiled, and say, okay, we've got what you need, what you've given us. Now we'll draw up your blueprint, and draw their blueprint up and say, here's your plan. And maybe it's a 1-year plan, maybe it's a 10-year plan. But nobody's done that. Nobody's sat down and developed that plan. We can do that, and we can do it well.
Am I able to jump around on these 4Ds, or is it
Yep.
one of those things like you gotta start at the beginning?
No, we've learned that just through doing it, right? And sometimes you jump into discovery right away, and then there's a lot of what ifs, and then we go back to define. Okay, well, let's define. We've got a lot of information here, exactly what it is you want to do, right? And then go to design, where we're strategizing, right? Okay, like here's the possible outcomes. We got 3 different options for you, right? The advantages, disadvantages, recommendations, that sort of thing. So what we found is there are 4 phases, but we do tend to jump back and forth between them.
Interesting. I thought it'd be very linear, but need to know that flexibility. I'm curious, positioning for the audience. Have you had a conversation with your lender, your accountant, and your lawyer together before a deal in the last 2 years? Would love it if you would contribute for the conversation here. Tim, you were saying that it's been 9-1 buyers to sellers. Is that changing? Is there
Yeah,
more opportunity?
there's more land, you know, marginally more land coming to the market, and people aren't as hungry or as aggressive, I think, as what they were 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? So I see a little more supply coming, and I see demand. Demand is still there, but it's very specific. It is becoming actually more strategic just because values are so high. If you're gonna do this, you want to make sure that it's right. So I think it is shifting kind of naturally. I'm not going to say it is totally transition because we're still short supply. There's still more demand than there is supply overall.
There's been a shakeup, though, in the
Yeah.
industry and a changing of tone. And I would say some concerns raised with what's happening with the largest farms on the scene. They're very public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of we've seen it with Robert. Has been very public about, hey, a lot of folks are now in this position where it's not necessarily an exit, but it's a repositioning for them that we never saw 2 years. Like nobody was. I don't think anybody was doing that in 22.
Yeah.
When we were making shooting out the lights and making $500 an acre or $1,000 an acre, doing your daddy style of wheat canola. Wade, what is the most expensive mistake a buyer can make in the first 30 days after the phone rings?
Sorry, Dan, I missed that. My internet connection's kind of cutting out a bit.
Yeah, what is the most expensive mistake that a buyer can make in the first 30 days after the phone rings?
Buying something that really doesn't fit their operation.
Oh,
They've
really?
just spent 500 they've just spent 500,000 to $1 million on a quarter of land that they shouldn't have bought. And now when the right one does show up, maybe they can still buy it, but maybe they can't. That's part of it. But there's also the part that not only did you buy one you maybe shouldn't have bought, but it also drags the rest of your operation down. So that's where the strategy comes in. And I've had that discussion many times with clients when they say, well, I want to make an offer on these 3 quarters. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like they don't fit your operation. And one client in particular, it was going to drag his overall soil quality down. And I'm like, you're planning to sell in the next 3 to 5 years. These 3 quarters are actually going to work against you, not for you. And he got that. And after he thought about it for a few days, and he didn't make an offer on them. So there was an example where we had a client who actually said, okay, I understand that. And, thanks for explaining it. And he passed by on them, and rightfully so.
I think you said a key thing there, Wade, that we all need time to digest things that aren't necessarily our idea or could be harder to accept, but strategically actually could win in the long term. And I think part of what we're identifying here is the need to get way ahead of everything on the curve. Because if you can't sit down with a professional way ahead of time and come to terms with, look, here's what the professionals are saying I should actually do versus what I would normally want to do, let's face it, emotional decisions are often the enemy of business. Emotional choices are often the enemy of strategic longevity. So it takes time to let these things to sink in and position ourselves properly, does it not?
Yeah, I think it does. I also like to kind of Wade's point, right? Does this kind of, because people are emotional. I mean, we see it all the time, whether you're buying or selling, and we can think it's academic, but emotions do kind of come into play. The plan helps to iron that out a little bit, not to say that there won't be some emotions in there. But even, like looking at something strategically, is it going to enhance the value of my existing operation, or is it not going to do that, right? And you should always think long term, right? And I always said too, like anytime you get into a business, you should have a thought or a plan about how to get out of it too. And that might be 50 years down the road, but it might be 5 years. So how does that incorporate into this? So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most businesses should be thinking about building to sell. And the very act of building to sell improves your business tremendously, because that means you have systems and
Yes.
different things in place that can operate without you. And if the only value in a farm was you tilling the land, that's going to limit the value of the potential enterprise value. You folks talk a lot about strategic enterprise value. And this is what you help the buyer or the seller, both sides,
Yeah.
position to do. You're in such a unique position that you could help both of these parties. Are you ever saying there's circumstances where you're saying that's not a good strategic move to expand or scale? What are the reasons that you would hesitate?
Well, just like Wade said, right? Like, does it add value to your existing farm? Is it going to stretch your equipment, your labor that you already have out there? Is it going to restrict you from acting on something that is a little bit more strategic to your operation? I guess that kind of thing.
Wade, did you have anything to add to that? Any context? I'm going to share the results here. I was going to ask you, Tim and Wade, what do you think?
Well,
How
I
many
think
people?
that
Oh, he's on a little bit
yeah.
of a delay. Go ahead, Wade. Are we coming through for you, Wade? Are we on a little bit of a delay there?
Yeah. There's so many. Yeah, you're on a bit of a delay to me here. I think that often there's so many different ways this can go. It could be 1 quarter, 5 quarters. It could be a satellite farm. But an example, and I had this with a potential client, was he knows a neighbor that's going to want to sell probably in 3 to 5 years. And if it's going to be a major cash outlay, what's the strategy and plan to make that happen when the neighbor's ready? Let's start that now. And maybe it involves helping the seller understand that there's advantages to them selling over time. If it's a big parcel of land, most of these guys in today's numbers, you want to start buying 20, 30 quarters, it's a huge cash outlay. Well, maybe we can get 10 of them and rent the other 10 and for 3 years and 5 years, and maybe we can build advantages into that program for the seller and the buyer. So there again, you got to build that out early, and the lawyer and the accountant need to be part of that from a financing, cash flow rate, and tax rate. And the lawyer side, are you buying corporately or buying personally? And what are the advantages of that both now and in the future? Maybe the seller's got a land held corporately. Maybe it should be a share purchase. There's just so many ways we can help with that by building that plan.
Well, and isn't this fascinating? Of the thousands of people attending this live event that have voted in this poll, no one has indicated they have a war room and a plan. Were you expecting that? No one.
I thought it would be low percentage, but there's no one. And I mean, that's kind of our experience. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that partially is as high as it is, because there is a lot of partial. And that's where we see the opportunity, right? For everyone is to know, let's have that war room. Let's have everybody on the same page at the same time, with the same strategy, and that, feeding each other, into this strategy. Does it make sense? And how do we modify it, and when, and how? So, yeah, this is interesting. I love your polls, Dan. There's so much gold in here for me.
I mean, we're in a 10 or 20 or 30 or $50 million war. Like you're in it, you're long it. And
I can't see your,
you can't see it.
I can't,
You can't see it, Wade. So the positioning question was
I can't see
nobody
can't
said
see
they
the
have a
poll.
war room and a plan. 40% said partially. They've talked to some of them separately. No, that conversation has not happened, said 30%. And 10% said, I did not know that was the move. That's for everybody that's listening on the podcast, right? And driving. Don't look away. And then we had 20% say I facilitate these conversations for clients. So we're getting some comments here. I want to switch gears to the audience here. Harry Siemens, God bless you. Thanks for coming on the show. He says, how are things happening in Manitoba? While covering farmers across the gamut. But are things happening across the prairies similar when it comes to finding and buying farmland? Is there differences where you are?
That's a great question, Harry. I think Manitoba, particularly Western Manitoba, would be very similar to Saskatchewan. And I mean, I'm not licensed to trade in Manitoba or Alberta yet, so I got to be careful what I say. But I do think Alberta is even more intense, right? Like there is less land actually hits the open market, and there's more neighbor to neighbor. More auctions. It is a little bit different market, and I suspect kind of that the Red River Valley, where you got intensive operations and high quality land. I think it's a little bit different market there too. So, that's a great question.
Well, and from my perspective, having sold sprayers across Manitoba, Western Manitoba, and being aware of Eastern Manitoba, and then working a business all over Western Canada. Like Manitoba is such a very interesting microcosm, right? From Portage la Prairie to Deloraine to Ile des Chênes, to Winkler. There is wild microcosms everywhere, but in Manitoba. 70% of the arable land within Manitoba is within 150-kilometer radius of Brandon. And there's more differences across that tapestry then you could shake a Mennonite stick at. I don't know what, if there's such a thing as a Mennonite stick, Harry. You can inform me if there's some nomenclature there I'm not privy to previously. Dean Andres is asking, I have some concern on land values, whereas it's hard to justify the current price per acre. And I guess we could go back to it's always been, it always will be. But will it? If the Elliott wave prediction via Trent Clarenbach research is true. I have some concern on land values, whereas it's hard to justify the current price per acre and cost to cash flow that purchase. The cost to cash flow that purchase. And what happens if interest rates jump in Canada? There's a 95% rate or prediction that there will be a December height rate in the States right now, according to the FedWatch. So, yeah, that is the thing. And despite what people are thinking because of inflation, interest rates are, we talked about this yesterday, how everybody's feeling inflation, Dean. Interest rates are historically low. So we haven't even talked about the 80s if if things go to 10 or 15 or 20% now, it's the old, it could never happen again. But we all thought when that chart of canola went to 900, it was never coming back down because nothing made sense below it. And look at us now. Cost to cash flow, rent versus own. Talk to me, folks. What Wade, do you have something on that? I don't know if he's getting a little bit of delay on the tin can and the string there.
Boy, there's just one more really good example. There's one really good example of why you sit all your advisors in the same room together. You ask that question when everybody's sitting there. Say, how do we manage this? So, Dean, you maybe want to continue farming. That's fantastic. And you want to grow. Well, let us help you figure that out. And I totally understand it. The cost is crazy. And when you just sit there at your table and you start crunching numbers, you're going, I don't know what to do. That's why you bring your advisor team together. You have that discussion, because when you sit 4 or 5 various professional people around the table, ideas will flow. plans will develop, and all of a sudden you might have options that you didn't know existed.
Do
That's
you
what
guys have
teams are
some
about.
examples of
That's what
that?
advisory teams
Have you
are about.
experienced that? I mean, a shift in thinking at the kitchen table?
I think this is a great question, and I mean we feel that pain, and then to a certain extent, it's these producers that are going straight to the investors and, hey, can we sell some of our land and rent it back? In a way, it's reducing their risk, right? Reducing their loan kind of exposure out there. But I mean, there's such a massive transition that is about to happen in the next 5 to 10 years in Canada, like these farms to transition. We also need a transition in how we think, Dan. It doesn't necessarily have to be the guy buying it buys it all, right? Maybe it is in partnership with an investor, so they buy half and the investor buys half and they rent it back. Or maybe it's an equity partner, right? Like I think we're going to see a lot of innovation come out of these transitions over the next 2 to 3 years, and I think we need it, right? If we're gonna maintain these values, try to protect everyone's equity and net worth, we got to look for stuff like this. It's a transition in thinking, not just a transition in the farm.
Wade, do we have enough capital to get everything transitioned that needs to be transitioned in the next 1 or 2 or 3 decades?
There's nowhere near enough capital available, and that's one of the flags being raised. If you look deep enough, those signals are out there. And Tim's, we talked about this earlier today, and we've talked about it in the past. What are the future relationships going to look like between lenders? And everybody says, well, lender. So you'll go to the bank and you'll borrow money, but they're hesitant to become involved with what I'm going to term a partner instead of an investor. At the end of the day, the money's still there. And maybe that partner is got to put some skin in the game. Maybe they got to be part of that operation somehow from financing inputs and so on and so forth. Things will be developed. There will be ways to do it. And again, that's where we need to have those chats. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the coming years. And there's going to be a way to do it. The sun went down last night. It came up tomorrow. It's coming up again the day after. So there's always a way.
Tomorrow. Tim, what do you got to add to that?
Oh yeah, I agree, right? And that's where, if we're thinking, right, if we're innovating, you need your team together, right? We need everybody in the room at the same time, and different eyes on this, looking at it from different angles, right? So to have the dream team working together, it's more important now to build your strategy than it's ever been, right? And I had another thought too, and it was on our podcast last week, is like Kevin Hirsch had kind of said, maybe the right decision is not to do it, period. Right. And we've learned this, strategic coach, right? Strategy is sometimes not doing something, right? So how do you incorporate that into your plan?
Yeah, well, that's where it would take discipline and or somebody to say, you know what, this probably seems like you should, but you shouldn't because of these reasons, and make that decision. The other thing I really want to point out, this is huge. One thing my little brother, and I say little, but he's taller and more handsome and richer and faster and smarter and bigger. My grandpa said I couldn't beat him up on the bus forever, and it came true. But he always counseled me, Dan, why do you want to charge ahead and make decisions on your own? When you're wrong, you're alone.
Mhm.
And if we want to be wrong, let's be wrong together, because we're going to be wrong in business. You're going to get it wrong. They have to make big decisions all the time on the farm. And I remember when they grew some hemp and it stayed in the bins too long, they couldn't get it to the processor, whatever happened in that. They had $900,000 of hemp that they couldn't, monetize and in storage, and the bank had to let them use it for inventory. Well, they made that decision to grow that hemp together. It wasn't Terry's idea alone.
Yeah.
Because that gets awkward when all the combines are on fire. It was your idea. It's like I had a brainchild and it turned out really bad. Um, we're gonna come back to this because I got a question because you guys said that you had a seller retain 30 million on a $70 million deal just to get it done. Let's get back to that in a bit, but let's get to our audience. Harry Siemens is saying, having watched farmers for 70 years, 15 on my dad's farm, and 55 years as a farm journalist, when farmers slash investors are mostly looking to invest and make money, are they not quite so keen on farming the land, including land practices and the environment? It's two different businesses, the business of farming and the business of real estate. Enlighten us. Wade, do you want to speak to that first and then we'll let Tim retort? The suspense is killing me. We might have to move on because Wade could be frozen there.
Yeah, I'm usually the slow one in the room,
I
Dan.
know.
So,
Yeah, I always. Tim, do you want to take it? I think Wade might be frozen.
uh, yeah. Reframe it for me again, Dan. Sorry, I
Yeah,
lost my train
sorry.
of thought.
So when farmers are investing, are
Oh,
mostly
yeah.
looking to invest and make money. Are they not quite so keen farming the land, including land practices and environment? I mean, there's a difference there between what you want to do, you want to farm the land, or the difference is being like a land investor that's bullish long term, you're farming it.
Yeah.
Because I always think farmers are kind of they're more than they know, they're cash flowing the best real estate on planet Earth by
Yeah.
giving their labor and time and blood and sweat and tears and sleepless nights for free, are they not?
Yeah. Yeah, that investment. I mean, in Saskatchewan, right? So the average farmer owns, 2/3 of the land that they farm. So on average, they rent a third of their land, right?
Mm.
That's the highest ratio in the world, right? Like if you look into the States, it's probably down towards 40% is owned. And if you go to Europe, it's probably closer to 10 to 20, right? So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon here, right? And I've always thought, why do you have to own every acre that you operate, right? And take a look at the Royal Bank of Canada. They don't own every building that they have a branch in. Why? Because they're a banking business. Sure, they own some strategic stuff, but their whole business isn't built around accumulating more real estate so that we can operate out of it. So so I know everybody wants, I just feel that sometimes, people feel they have to own everything. And I just think it actually reduces your risk if you don't own everything.
Well, I had heard something that the most profitable McDonald's in the world on Manhattan Island, they weren't making burgers. They were cash flowing the best property on planet
Mm,
Earth. Could you imagine what a corner spot on a block of Manhattan real estate's worth? But if you can flip
yeah,
enough burgers, and that's when I heard that, I kind of thought about farmers because all these dips, all this up and down, you're stuck, things break, the odd crescent wrench gets thrown at your head. But the reality is, on a long enough timeline, if you hold on to the land, it kind of has a nice smooth equity curve like nothing else on planet Earth.
yeah. And I mean, farmers, they help bid investors all the time, right? And the reason they can do it is because an investor is looking for, kind of a 2.5, 3, 4% cap right now. So the farmer, he's looking at that cap rate, but he also knows that he can make money operating it. So there's two separate functions there, right? There's the return on the land, and there's also the return to operations. So the farmer typically can outbid the investor all the time if they're going to farm it themselves.
Well, and I think Norm is speaking to this conversation too, because all of a sudden you're getting out of whack with land prices versus input costs. So that gets skewed, and we want to stay in the game even when there's no margins because it's like, well, at least my land went up 10% according to FCC last year, but did it? Is it? Until you liquefy, until you monetize, you're speculating. But you know where the buyers are. That's the thing. Like you connecting all those dots. So Norm is saying seems pretty important where a person is located,
Yeah.
where you are in your business cycle, transition, building a second farm with your investment advisor, interest rate, and Fed's direction on currency and future tax hikes, I think the money supply is a huge thing. Are they pumping money into the economy? It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Innovated, creative ideas needed. And creative lending is something I would love to talk about on the platform. I was talking to Alex Clark from Rabobank, and they have a lot of really cool, flexible lending. And then that's what you're talking about. If you get a banker around the table, you can say, well, what if this and what if that? And do you have that? And I didn't know Rabobank. Robert told me Rabobank's actually the Robert Bank. I don't know if Robert's starting a is Robert, if you're listening, we need you to start a bank. Just kidding. I could probably borrow some money from you. Anyways, seems like we're at a dangerous land prices versus input costs. But that creative lending piece, you probably know. What can you do? Can we go interest only for this duration until we see an appreciation? Can we go? Is there a 50-year mortgage out there? Can I get air miles on my mortgage payments? I don't know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think the lenders are really in tune with this, right now. And, again, one of the podcasts that we had, right, is just the innovation. Okay, how do we look at it, right? And, when I asked them how many loans do you decline, they said, well, we don't really decline them. We just find a different way to kind of make them or advise them, right? So there is lots of innovation, right? But it's, you need everybody at the table at the same time coming up with these ideas and discussing them, right? And the accountant's like, well, this is, these are the numbers, these are your ratios, this is what you can afford. The lender is like, okay, well, how much can we expose you to? Is there a different way to kind of structure this, right, to reduce that risk? And maybe you don't buy it all, right? Maybe we bring in somebody else too. So it's a ton of thinking, it's a ton of strategy, and you need a collaboration. You need your entire team at the same table building this.
Well, we want people to go to bat for us in our business as well.
Yeah.
And they become a pseudo advisory board.
Yeah.
And you know what successful people really love? Everybody thinks it's money, but my experience, the people who are really successful, guess what they already have? They already have money. What they love is giving back, and they love if somebody asks them for their expertise. And so if you're asking these people at the table, Tim, for their expertise, that banker is going to go up the food chain and make your case. That's a big deal right now with what's coming.
Yeah. It's a big deal. And even, each advisor, they take the knowledge out of this meeting and they apply it to another client, right? It just elevates everything kind of so much. And, and I guess that's part of our process, right? Is sometimes you got this dream team and sometimes you get them at the table. But who quarterbacks that, right? And that's what we've been conditioned from day one is, right? How do we get results, right? How do we get the outcome that everybody wants here? So we're not afraid, to champion this, right? We don't we just keep it going, right? We quarterback it, make sure that everybody's contributing to this and that we're making progress, right? It's not just a meeting for the sake of the meeting. It's what do we want to achieve? Let's measure that. Are we achieving it, right? Are we getting ahead on this?
Well, I think of the difference trying to make some of these decisions in a void on your own, with a bunch of tractor windshield time versus, hey, I don't have to decide this on my own. I have a whole bunch of people in my camp. We're going to figure this out together. I'm just going to try and sleep at night. Harry Siemens is saying, Dan, thanks for the answers. But my second question was more about, are we focused more on turning that investment over and making money? But at the same time, are we still focused on looking at the land and the environment? A little bit of a devil's advocate. I mean, I guess it's the old argument that, you want your investment to continue producing. So that's the definition of sustainability. How do you guys see this playing into your 4Ds and your being the train conductor, and where does that come into stewardship? Where is that on the table, Tim? Is that a concern?
Oh, well, I guess I do. We just assume it's a foundation, right? We
Yeah.
just really feel that, whether you're a seller or a buyer or whoever, it's just, I'm always just super impressed with how, that's at the core value of everybody out there, like producing. So I guess it's almost, just kind of assumed that, yes, it's going to be in the best interest of the land and the environment and the, sustainability. It doesn't come up in conversations. I just feel it's the foundation.
Wade, are you with us there? Or you were trying to train hop, but you got out of the caboose a bit there? Can you
You
hear
got
us
thrown
now?
from the boxcar.
Funny story. It's going to be in Robert's book there, but he was train hopping on the way to New York from Chicago to get on a. Ultimately, he wanted to get down to Miami to jump on a boat to go see Argentina that he read about in high school as the most fertile place on earth. And apparently, jumping in these boxcars, they tried to get warm one day and set one on fire with the fire that they made inside the boxcar. So many boxcar Robert, we'll call him. Many crazy stories to come there. But Wade, are you with us now? Can you hear us okay?
At the moment, I can. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, sorry you're having connections there. I wanted to ask you, you said a seller retained 30 million on a $70 million deal just to get that done. What in the heck are we talking about there?
Uh, Let me back that up a little bit. I have a seller that's willing to do that.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I'm working on one. Yeah. So I think that's an example, and we talked about that a bit once before, where the value of these large farms, they've built some substantial holdings, and it's fantastic. But all of a sudden, it limits guys who want to get in and take that over. It's, who's got 70, 80, $100 million to spend. So we're seeing more and more landowners saying, well, okay, what happens if I retain part of it? Well, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
And whether they're retaining it and getting just a pure rent or part of a farm income, there's many ways that can be worked out.
Yeah. And that's part of our strategy when we're talking to these buyers, right? Is sellers are becoming more receptive to this all the time because it's the way the industry is transitioning, right? So let's leverage that, right? If we were to split this up into tranches, what would that look like, right? And how do we protect the seller, on kind of staggered closing? So yeah, it's bringing that strategy that works for both of them together.
I wanted to ask the folks on the call because, of course, you're here because you have a vested interest in some aspect of this. Where are you in your acquisition journey right now? I'm actively looking, Tim. I've got a lot of cash, and I really want to buy some farmland. So put the choo choo, put me on the train.
Well,
I'm making so much money podcasting here. I want to buy, big blocks all together.
let's have a discovery session. Let's talk about that.
Have a place for my money. We'll let that run a little bit, and
Yeah.
but funny little detour here too. Tim, one of the big things you wanted to talk about, and I don't know if it's going to be super big hot button, but you want to talk about the right of first refusal at some point with folks. It's
At some point, yeah. It is very common practice out there, with good intentions. But if it is not set up properly or dealt with properly, it can just really complicate things, right? And legally. And so, yeah, I would love to have a discussion about that. And, and again, I always say, what hurts, what helps one person usually is, hurts the other one. And it's trying to figure out what makes sense because a right of first refusal, it can hurt the seller. It is an advantage to the buyer. And there's lots of dynamics to that. So I'd love to have a conversation on that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things that really illustrates this conversation and the value of it because isn't right of first refusal something we just, not to give away too much thunder from the next episode, but we just kind of assume it's a bit of an institution. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we should have that. But people don't always calculate in the secondary order consequences of their actions until they have an expert like yourself that can point it out like, hey, did you ever think that this might become an issue when? And then think twice about it. And if you can explain it properly, you might not have to step on that landmine or have that rake smash our nose in kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's usually incorporated out of good intentions, but Like, I mean, sometimes it's handwritten in, 15 words or less into a lease that can have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of implications kind of on an exit type thing. So yeah, I'd love to share my experiences and insights on that.
That would be very educational. Do you want to take a guess? You've been very good at these. What percentage of the folks are actively looking in the audience today have a target or a deal in progress?
25%?
33%.
A third. Okay.
Yeah. And 8% are positioned and waiting. I know what I want. I just need the phone to ring. 17% are thinking about it, but not positioned yet. And a quarter of them are not looking. They're in harvest mode right now, maybe
Yeah.
waiting for a dip. Keeping your dry powder for the dip. And then 17% are saying, I work with buyers. I'm here for the framework. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, in the whole transition thing, there's, far more people looking to expand than exit, right? And that's a good thing for the industry.
I really love something that you said in our green room conversation was merging two dreams together, because who doesn't? I mean, this is literally the sandbox of our lives. Like, we're playing in the sandbox with the Tonka toys. We want that dirt. We want the big Tonka trucks. These are people's dreams of a lifetime, to build a farm, or to acquire a farm, or to, isn't it in our DNA to own land? Like, from a survival perspective, like, isn't we want to, like,
Yeah.
own dirt? Like,
Yeah.
who hasn't had that baked into their DNA? What does it look like when you merge two dreams, Tim?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is the most fulfilling thing to actually facilitate that, right? But you understand what a seller is looking for when they want to transition out, right? And so you've got their wish list, and then again, you understand what a buyer is looking for, when they're 20, 40, 100-year plan, right, for the growth. And when you see these two, dreams kind of overlap, it's almost a natural, right? And those kind of deals actually are facilitated really well because you got everybody pulling in the right direction. You get a great deal for the seller, you get a great deal for the buyer, right? And that's my dream, right? Is when the dreams of both of them merge like that.
Tim, I gotta correct you. That's actually three dreams.
There
Their
we go.
dreams and their other dreams and your dreams is three dreams.
Yeah.
So maybe that we
The
should talk
dream
about.
team, right?
Let us know if you want Hammond Realty to follow up. I think they're building something beautiful, and that's why I really wanted to work with them, because all these conversations go back to when we first started talking about you guys being a part of Convergence Conference. And you said, Dan,
Yeah.
we're doing this. I think at the time you called it M&A thing, or you had built this whole vision. I thought that is very interesting, and a repositioning of people's perspective is
Yeah.
required in times such as this to
Yeah.
be productive and pertinent. And everybody here's on the cutting edge by virtue of taking in this information. Hopefully it was really valuable. And Tim, I'm sure you're an ideas guy like me. That's why we really connect so easily and quickly. What do you envision down the track for the transition train? Who we might bring in, or what we might talk about, or if anybody has in the audience what they'd like to really hear about, now's the time. But we've got a lot of interesting conversations to have about different parts of this kitchen table conversation, don't we?
Yeah. I think, maybe, the structure part of it, and that came out of today's, quiz that you did, Dan, right? Is that, structure is an important. So what does that look like? What are the different options, right? It's really interesting because when we write an offer reactively for somebody, we always tell them put it in and or nominee or assignee, because a lot of the times we secure that deal and then they figure out a different way that they're going to do it down the road. So they reserve the right to, okay, part of this will be in my company, part of it will go to a sibling, whatever, right? But that's our protection for them, right? Is anticipating, okay, there's one person on the offer here, but it could go multiple ways. So we can help them with that. But I just maybe to talk about just different different structures.
And what is the cost to talk to you, Tim? What does it cost?
There's no cost. It's just your time, right? Like, let's have a conversation. You know, if you want to build a strategic plan, I mean, we can talk that, kind of through. We're looking at kind of a figure per acre and what the size is. And, that's to build the strategic blueprint. But if you want us to deliver on that and knock on doors and get deals done for you, well, we can apply that strategic thinking, investment towards a commission that we might end up on it, right? We're about just kind of, building things and yeah.
That's fun. No, I think that this is your jam, and both you and Wade are extremely passionate about it, and we're going to have to keep coming at it from all different angles for people to see what we're talking about and what the value is.
Yeah.
So, folks, at the top, I said we would walk out of here knowing what being ready actually looks like. I hope that we've achieved that a little bit more. I hope that you felt you learned about the difference between what land costs and what it's worth to your operation. That's an insight worth meditating on. And then we've heard Tim and Wade put a name to the question every buyer is going to face about right of refusal. And I think we'll be talking more about that. And I hope that you feel that we delivered on our promise here today. And if you're interested in talking to these guys on their transition train from Homestead to Horizon, you can check them out at hammondrealty.ca. And you guys aren't too hard to get a hold of. Pretty much everybody in Saskatchewan's either related to each other or knows each other, I guess, hey?
I concur. Yeah.
Small community. Joshua Leffer says something I'd like to hear about in the future. How have you guys seen young guys get into farming? Man, I want to do a young farmers panel so bad.
Yeah.
We really need to arrange that, Tim. And then
Yeah.
Joshua lives in the Lethbridge area where land is $20,000 to $30,000 per acre. Rent is getting crazy due to special crops pressures. And well, we're gonna have to get at the kitchen table and get creative and get the young people there with the mentors and the people with the capital. And I still believe that if anybody has farming in their heart, there's a way to do it, even if it's maybe on a different scale and maybe it's two different things. Are you wanting to be a land investor when you grow up, or do you want to farm? One thing I'll never forget about my brother is he wanted to farm so bad, Tim. He just always maintained that he would farm no matter what, even if he had to work for the neighbor. That was about, he wanted to do that farming. I don't know if he still feels that way this spring. He might be saying, I'm good. I've had enough farming now. I've, farmed around and found out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be in your blood. And I think that is a question. Do you want to be a landowner? Are you an investor? Or are you a farmer? Because if you want to farm, go see my brother right now. He'll give you a pair of rubber boots and point you at the field. You'll be farming tomorrow if you got a good attitude. So so what are we talking about here? If you say young people can't farm, like, do they need to own $30,000 an acre land to farm?
Well, I think it's different, right? Like, in timing is everything. To start 20 years ago is a lot different than to start today, right? And I don't think farming differs from a lot of businesses. Like, go try to start up a car dealership, right? Like, the amount of capital and human resource experience that you got to have, it is challenging to buy, to start a business from nothing. And I think, what the future kind of holds is this buy-in, right? And it's like, I want to work for you. I want you to mentor. How do I earn my way into the business over time, right? How do I take on more responsibility? How can I prove to you that I'm worth more to this operation? How can I help you grow your operation so it's worth more to you? So I think, that's part of it, to step out and do it all by yourself. I think that's going to be super challenging. We need to transition our thinking down.
You make such a great point. When I started out in the John Deere dealership, it was still a thing where you could work your butt off and you might become a partner. You might have be, a 10% partner in that dealership. Can you do that with the big chains that are there today? You look at the facilities they've built, and can you become a partner in Pattison? I mean, maybe if you can buy their shares. But there's also new opportunities. We could look at this like what we don't have, but look at the opportunities in 2026 that never existed ever before.
Yeah.
I think if you really want to be involved with farming right now, you could be a technologist for mini farms and work with mini farms.
Yeah.
There's jobs we never dreamed of that exist today for your specialty, who you are. But we hear you, Joshua.
Yeah.
It's tough, but I'd like to know from young farmers, like, what is it that you want that would make you happy that you can't get today in the market? And what do we do to bridge that gap,
Right.
4D style?
Yeah.
But there's many more stops with this train. Stay on the platform. We're not done. We're going to keep shoveling some coal in there. And I'm sorry that Wade had some connection problems, but he did make a lot of great points in the time that we had together. So I thought it was actually a really great session. So much gold's coming out of these conversations. Harry says, "Thanks, Dan. Do show just on how to get younger people involved in farming, whether Manitoba, Sask, and Alberta. We hear young farmer, young farmer. Well, let's find out
Yeah.
what's on their mind and their heart and their wallet and
Yeah.
help them." So that's I'm sure if a young farmer want to be talk to you now, that's a better move than, can you imagine, 20-year-old guy or gal coming to you saying, "Tim, this is what I want to do." How engaged would you be to help that person?
Oh, I would help them. I also would find a way to partner them with somebody, because there are a lot of farmers that are looking to retire. And I mean, they want to see it go to somebody young, and maybe there's nobody in their family that wants to do it. Like, there's a lot of motivated people that will have preferential deals for opportunities like this. So, I mean, maybe not a lot, but there are some out there anyways. But again, we know these motives, these aspirations, right? And it starts with a conversation. Can we merge the two dreams?
3.
Three. Merging two fulfills the third. There you go.
Okay. Well, we figured that out together. So thanks, Tim. Always a pleasure.
Okay.
And we'll see you
Thank
on the
you.
transition train, another stop very soon. Thank you for everybody that's been supporting this platform. The feedback's been incredible. And I feel like I'm getting to know more of you too as we go on this journey. I'm talking to some of you personally here and there. So don't be afraid to reach out. I'd love to talk to you. I hope you're getting value from the platform. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dan, and everyone for attending.